The first one was an erev on one of the brothers. The first widow, she was forbidden by one of the brothers by Issachar.
Are they sisters over here or not?
The two widows,
Yeah.
yes, they are sisters. But the third brother can marry. The third brother theoretically, the third brother over here cannot be even with one of them because one of them is an erev on him, on Levi. Let's say the surviving brother. Let's say, for example, Reuven married one sister, Shimon married the other sister, and Levi married both of their mothers. Or let's say a daughter of one of them. I'm sorry, a daughter of one of them. So now, if one of them is the mother of his wife, he can't marry a mother and a daughter. It's not allowed. She's an erev. So but to the other one, who's not his wife's mother, it's his wife's mother's sister, his wife's aunt. That l'chara is okay. I think so. So let's take that as an example. So she'll show you purposes. And he goes and he does Yibum with her. And the other one, who he has no shaykhs to, she could marry a different one of the brothers. Because again, the one who became widowed second, who created this problem, she had Yibum, this Yama, to someone who she could do Yibum. Just like if she passed away, or if she got Chalitza, then the other wife could marry one of the other brothers. She could do Yibum with a different brother. So too, if she got Yibum from one of the brothers that she couldn't potentially get Yibum from, because the other wife isn't an option. So this whole problem of having two at once is not an option. It's not two at once for him because one of them is not an option. One of them is his wife's mother. It's his own mother-in-law, right? So he's not an option, and therefore, she can marry whichever brother she pleases. If the one who became widowed second was the one who was not allowed to marry the other brother because of an erva, so she's his wife's mother, for example, he could do Yibum to the first one, but the other brothers are forbidden to both of them. So he could do Yibum to the first one because at the moment she passed away, she was permitted to him. When the second one passed away, she doesn't create any problems for him because she doesn't challenge the status of the one waiting for Yibum as two people like happening at once because it's his mother-in-law, so it doesn't come into the picture. And therefore he could do Yibum with the first one. But the other brothers can't do Yibum with either of them. They do Chalitza, not Yibum question, as we said, in Halacha Aleph. Because again, you can't do as we said in Halacha Daled. Because again, you can't do because the other brothers do have a shaykhus. The other brothers do have two people who you can't marry. Both of them are both waiting for Yibum. If one of them does marry one of them, even though theoretically you would think that without asking the Bezdin, even though theoretically potentially he can marry one as long as he marry the other, but because they both have a connection to these, each one of these brothers in theory would be forbidden to do Yibum with both at the same time, we make them remove their whole status of Yibum altogether and only do Chalitza. Okay. Shloisha Achim, you have three brothers. Shnayim Hem Naslushta Achiyah, two of the brothers are married to his sisters. Reuven and Shimon are married to Rachel and Leah. Meis Echad Bali Achiyah, and then Shimon, for example, who's married to one sister, dies. Now you have surviving Reuven and surviving Levi, and you have the widow Rachel. And Levi, who's not married at all, let's say, for example, he's married to somebody else, he doesn't do Yibum with Rachel, the surviving widow, but he does Ma'amar, right? And he could do Yibum, but he does Ma'amar first, the Kedusha you're supposed to do before Yibum, and then, while they're waiting for that to happen, then after that happens, Reuven, who was married to the other sister, he dies as well. Now Levi is potentially now candidate for to do Yibum with Rachel and Leah, both sisters of his two sister-in-laws, his dead brother's wives. So now, but here's the problem: they're both sisters. So on the one hand, they both became widows one after the other. If he had done a complete Yibum with his sister-in-law Rachel, so she's his wife. The next day, or next week, when the other widow the other sister-in-law becomes a widow, obviously he can't do Yibum with her because she's a sister-in-law. So she doesn't need Yibum or Chalitza. You marry whoever she wants. The problem is Levi didn't do Yibum. He just did a quasi Yibum. He did the first step, which is the Kedusha and Maimer. So therefore, and so on the one hand, now Rachel, who got the kedushin of him, is waiting for Yibum, and Leah doesn't know what to do. So if he marries Rachel, he's marrying the sister of somebody who potentially could do Yibum with, or who, because again, he can't do Yibum with both. Theoretically, he could do with one or the other, not both. So, but we said you can't have two connections at once. So now one is a connection to him because he gave her Mimer. The other one is a connection to him because she's waiting for Yibum. So these are both two people who it's a clash. So he can't marry Rachel. He can't complete his marriage to Rachel by doing Yibum because she's the sister of somebody who he is sort of married to by the shaykhus of Zika Yibum. That's not allowed. He can't do Yibum with the new widow because she's the sister of somebody he gave kedushin to, and is also waiting to Yibum. So it's a clash. But in Torah, the kedushin doesn't really work. So the mimer is just a rabbanon, in other words. So therefore, he's a nasi get labalas a mimer b'chalitzah. He has to give a get to Rachel to undo the mimer he did. Then he has to do chalitza for her to let her marry whoever she pleases. The chalitza he has to do chalitza with the other one.
If you did chalitza,
Which I can tell to the zar, no, to matter to somebody else. You see, why chalitza to both? You're asking.
yeah.
Because these are two different widows, two different households. The chalitza of one doesn't help with her. If Ruvain dies and he has 10 wives, do chalitza with one, all 10 can marry if they want. These are two different widows, two different brothers. Each one needs their own chalitza. But Rachel also needs a get to undo the mimer. So neither of them can do Yibum because they're two sisters. And even though he started the process with Rachel by giving her kedushin, that's not considered complete marriage. Yeah. Okay. Zayin. If Levi, who was Mekadesh, the first widow, Rachel, passes away, he had another wife. Now Ruvain, who is still alive. So again, let's remember, Ruvain is married to Leah, Shimon's married to Rachel, and Levi is not married at all. Shimon passes away, Rachel's a widow. Levi gives Rachel kedushin, gives her mimer, and he dies. Now Ruvain, the surviving brother, is married to Leah, and Rachel needs Yibum Chalitza. He can't do Yibum with her, obviously. She's his wife's sister. So, but Levi, who passed away, the one who gave the kedushin, who passed away second, he had other wives. He had another wife. Now to understand the thing about Achis, and Ruvain now has, there's two widows. There's Shimon's widow and Levi's widow. Shimon's widow is his wife's sister, not an option. Levi's widow is still a woman. That's an option. So, but Baal HaMaimer and Baturim and Achis Yibum, the one who got the mimer from Levi, it's Shimon's widow, the sister of Ruvain's wife, doesn't require Yibum or Chalitza. She's his wife's sister. There's no obligation to do Yibum because it's a chorus to marry your wife's sister. Therefore, there's no obligation to do Chalitza. And Levi's wife gets Chalitza. We don't let her do Yibum. Why? Because we don't let her do Yibum because she was temporarily she was a co-wife of sorts to Ruvain's wife's sister. Because when Levi passed away after giving Rachel kedushin, so now when Levi gave Rachel kedushin, she became a sort of a wife, right? The Rabbanon. Now Levi passes away and he leaves a widow. He leaves a widow and a half. One widow, a real widow, his wife, and Shimon and Shimon's widow, who he gave kedushin to. So he was sort of married to both. So because he was sort of married to both, his own wife and the widow, when Levi dies and leaves behind both of these almanas, one of them is a stranger to Ruvain, but one of them is his wife's sister. So therefore, he's not able to do Yibum to either of them because one is his wife's sister and one is a co-wife of his wife's sister. Since they were both married to Levi, like married in quotations, because Maimer's only with the Rabbanon, but they were both married with the Rabbanon to Levi. So now both, and one of them is not an option to Ruvain because he's his wife's sister. So neither of them get Yibum, but the Rabbanon is chalitza required. The Maimer is not a complete kinyan like Yibum to the extent that it's patasur. If Levi had completed his Yibum and he did Yibum with Rachel, so now Levi's fully married to his wife, let's call it a Sprinza, and he's fully married to Rachel. And then Levi dies. At that moment, Rachel and Sprinza both need Yibum from Ruvain, or Yibum from Ruvain, theoretically. The thing is, one of them is his wife's sister, so she's not an option. Because she's not an option, it requires no Yibum or Chalitza. Her co-wife, the other widow of Levi, also wouldn't need it, but that's not the case over here because Maimer is only the Rabbanon. Therefore, Chalitza is required. Ches. If one of the Yavamas is in the Kadesh's wife's, the sister of his Yavama. So let's say again, so So let's say a simple case. I don't think you have to take a case of brothers over here, right? Your regular case: Ruvain and Shimon are brothers, right? Okay, Ruvain's married to Rachel, and he dies. Now Rachel needs Yibum Mechalitza from Shimon. Shimon's not. I need to think about it. I need to think about it. What does he do? He goes and finds this widow's sister, and he marries her. Now he obviously can't marry the Yibum. He can't marry the sisters.
Do Vchalitza.
1 second, okay. So so he's Makadasher. He have a Kedushin. What do we do? We tell him like Hamtin wait for Al Hashem, don't divorce her. The Alta says, but don't do Nasin either. Till we see what happens. Wait to see what your brother does. The other brother, let's say Levi over here, what does he do over here? If he does Yibum with her, right? So what we have to see what happens. He has to do he's going to do Yibum Chalitza. If the other brother does chalitza with the surviving widow, excuse me, with the widow, with the sister of the one he's engaged to. I say engaged because Kedusha is like an engagement, right? Or for that matter, what if the woman dies? He can marry his mukudeshes because she's not the sister of anybody he's shaykhs to. Mesu echav kulam. What if his brothers all die, and now he's faced with doing yibum with his mukudeshes' sister. He has to divorce his arusa mukudeshes with a get. And he has to give his yibum chalitza. If he makes arus, why? Because since he was just to give his arusa a get, even with the widow, that he can't do that. He's marrying his divorcee sister. He can't do that. And exactly, by sisters, he can't do that. And to give chalitz to her, and then marry his arusa, then he's marrying the sister of his chalutza, which resembles a divorcee. So it's the same problem. So he can't marry either of them. Either way he's marrying somebody who's either his sister of his divorcee or a sister of his sort of divorcee. Chalutza is like sort of a divorcee. The Meisa Rasasa, what if his Mukadeshes dies? Whether she dies before or after, then in that case, because his Mukadeshes died, so then Chaza Yavama the Yavama goes to the original status. The moment the Yavama became widowed, he had the option of Yibum Chalitza. He made a problem by being Mekadesh, her sister. If his sister dies, problem is undone. Either way, because again, there's no problem of marrying your widow's sister. You can't marry a divorcee sister. If the wife dies, you could marry the sister. Okay, Tess. 3 brothers. 2 of them are married to 2 sisters, right? Again, Reuven and Shimon married to Rachel and Leah. Each one of them has another wife. So Reuven's married to Rachel and some random woman, and Shimon's married to Leah, the sister, and some random woman. The 2 brothers who are married to these 2 sisters and have other wives additionally to them as well, both die. Now these 2 sisters and their co-wives are both waiting for Yibum by the 3rd brother, from Levi. So if he does chalitza to the wives who are not related, the other. So again, remember, doing chalitza to one widow from one household makes all of them marry whoever they please. So when he does, makes they all are free to marry whoever they want. So when Levi's surviving brother gives chalitza to one of Reuven's wives, let's say one who's not related to anybody, the other wife, who is the sister of one of the sister-in-laws, could also marry whoever she pleases. And then when he does chalitza with one of Shimon's wives, who's not related to anybody, the other wife, including the sister of the other widow, can also marry whoever she wants. If he does chalitza with the 2 sisters from each household, again, each brother's household, each brother's set of wives requires a chalitza, right? So if he does with the 2 sisters, they are not free to marry whoever they please until they get their own chalitza. Why not? Doing chalitza with 2 sisters, again, you can't marry both of them. So because you can't marry both of them, you can't even with both, the chalitza is is lacking potency, and therefore doesn't free the whole household like a real solid chalitza would. The chalitza she'ena me'ula ena chapedas atzarik mashvianu, a inferior chalitza only frees the woman it was done with, doesn't free her co-wives or co-widows. Therefore, they'll require their own independent chalitza. Yud. Yirali, it seems to me, says the Rambam, which means it's not explicit in the Gemara, it's the Rambam's interpretation of the Gemara, or extrapolation. Same thing applies if you have two widows coming from one house, meaning one brother dies with two widows. Right? So Ruvain passes away. He has two wives. One of them is not related to anybody. Shimon could marry her. The other one, Shimon can't really marry her because she's in Isser Aseh. Let's say, for example, Reuven's a Kohen Gadol. That's not a good example. Sorry, never mind. One way case. Let's say one of them is
Aseh? It's an Aseh?
Yeah.
Isn't that a positive mitzvah?
Yeah, but sometimes you're not allowed to do something. It's a mitzvah saseh to not. For example, the Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry a non-virgin. It's a mitzvah saseh to marry only a virgin, a basula. If he marries a non-virgin, he's transgressing an aseh, not a lo saseh. So whatever the reason is, one of the other sisters is not allowed to marry the surviving brother, not as chiv kares, a lesser degree of isser, right? A lav or a aseh or a rabbanon. If he does chalitza with the one he's not allowed to marry anyways, again, if he chooses to marry her, the marriage is binding, but it's not allowed. Her co-wife is not allowed to marry if she wants yet. She requires her own separate chalitza. Again, it's an inferior chalitza. A good chalitza means you give chalitza to a woman you could have done yibum to, with no restrictions. A woman who there's a restriction on the yibum, then a chalitza with her is not solid. Sorry, if he does chalitza with the co-wife who he has no problem marrying, but the one who is forbidden to him regardless of that can marry whoever she pleases, right? So yeah, let's say Ruvain passes away, and now he has two wives, right? And Shimon, so one of them Shimon could marry. The other one Shimon can't marry. Let's say, for example, Shimon is Reuven has two wives. One he's been married to for many years, and one he's been kaddish just yesterday. Then Reuven, who's a Kohen Gadol, by the way, dies. So the one he's been kaddish, Reuven is regular Kohen, that problem dies. Now Shimon, his brother who's surviving, is a Kohen Gadol. These two sisters, one of them he can marry, no problem. She's a widow.
No, Kohen Gadol can marry a widow.
Yes, he could.
Huh?
I'm sorry, you're right. No, doesn't work again because she's widowed from Kiddushin. Yeah, sorry. No, never mind. Okay, but I'm trying to construct a case where the point is, you get the point, right? The point is that the brothers who's surviving has no problem. There's no restriction, no issur marrying one of the widows. The other one, there is some level of restriction. Not the bottom, but not a chiv kares. So the chalitza with that one who he couldn't marry anyways because there's an issur involved is that chalitza is inferior and doesn't free the other wife. Okay, Yudal. Three brothers. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Two of them are married to two sisters. And someone's married to some random person. And then let's say one of the two married to a sister, for example, Shimon, passes away. Yibum and Levi does Yibum with his sister-in-law, with the widow Rachel. Okay. Now Levi has two wives, his first wife and his new wife, who was formerly married to his brother. And then afterwards, Reuven's wife dies. The other sister dies. So now only one surviving sister. And then afterwards, the third wife. Sorry, the third brother passed away. Right, the brother who originally did Yibum, he died. And he lives these over two widows now. His original wife and the wife who he did Yibum with. So now Reuven is looking to do Yechalitza or Yibum with either an unrelated woman or his wife's sister. So they're both now. No, that was wrong. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, the Thea Sheni was what's next was by you, Thea Sheni. She'en lo yisha, it says Biur Hare Elu. Here's in parentheses. Okay, let's skip it then if it's in parentheses. Both of them are patach Yibum. Why? Again, because when Reuven is looking at these two widows, one of them is his wife's sister. She's not a candidate for Yibum Chalitza because you can't marry your wife's sister, right? It's against the Torah. It's a chiv kares. Therefore, the other widow, Levi's original wife, is also not an option Yibum Chalitza. He says, one of them he can't do because she was his wife's sister at the time the first one died. She always becomes, once she becomes forbidden as a wife's brother. No, sorry, 1 second, I got this all wrong. Okay, you know what? I think we should start Hilchos Yalef again after Ma'ariv. How does that sound? Ma'ariv is now? Yeah. Okay, so let's. Yeah. Okay.
We're gonna start with your
Yeah.